Actually, the way I look at it, science seems like things that starts with.
Right.
I look at it. So yeah, it's very, very. We have a lot of problems already.
We do. And I was gonna tell you, I was right. I want to be there, yeah, but I was pretty. Look
It was in there. I was there, that was gone.
Yeah.
Back. I normally skate by me or.
No, it does not.
Yeah. It's just like what. That was a good one.
Wow, I just.
My wife jumped out.
Yeah, I was.
But also. Yeah. They get us sitting on his knee. It's our sisters, plus the Facebook feed. Like the higher grades. Not really good friends as a kid, and that's.
Yeah. That's it. They run out. Oh, yeah. Well, that would get. Other guys, what are the? They're over 6 hours. And it works in the system. Less than 3.
Oh.
So now they've had to move out. That's that. That's what we were off. What's her? Growing boy, right?
I don't need my laptop because I gave her that.
So. You down home and you could run probably go inside the home. Like you so. It's incredible.
You're not thinking nice. Yes. They're running those. Driving on that. Yeah. Okay.
One of the concerns on my face is I'm very fortunate. Oh, wow. I thought I got to her.
2 years. His sort of went on the other hand.
Good.
That's it. That's it. No, I didn't see it. Yeah, I haven't seen that recently.
And that brings me to. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some of them are in here too. And then we also have. Right. Chris. Are you remember? Don't travel. You may slide the rest of the rain on there. Good here, but I get it all. Eight, 9, 10. Over the Cincinnati. Yeah, right. I was sitting there. There was a big statement. Oh, yeah. Here, great. But I need to be like that, right down the street. Here, and now, we're going to fire right in my road. I was done. I looked at that, I said, well, I told my, I got 2 or 3. Go out and see if the auction is
We're all set and recording.
Yes. Hey, oh, that's because, oh my goodness, it's down for top.
Yep.
Please. It's really.
Let's call this meeting of the roundtable to order. 6:09. Sorry about that. The time got away from me. So Kristen, you want to call the roll? You have your sheet up?
I do.
Okay.
Sonia Macy's?
I'm sitting in for Sonny Macy,
Oh,
Scott
okay.
Kalman from Rock County,
How do you spell that?
COWMA.
County. Oh, all right. All right, well. Miranda Kachuk?
Here.
Doug Overton? Doug? Young Light. Ken Brenner?
Here.
Julie Baxter? Here. Hey, Dinkelmeyer?
Here.
Mario Sullivan?
Present.
Andy Rossi?
Here.
Mike Camlin?
Here.
Sean Welder? Okay, Jake Sheehan? No? Oh,
See him.
Alden Vandenbrink?
Present.
Casey Green? Rebecca Briesmar? Here. Callie Spickfield? Here. Tim Sullivan?
Here.
Will Myers?
Here.
Kent Bertries?
Here.
Frank Alphonse?
Here.
Jackie Brown? Here. Jeff Myers?
Here.
Doug Monger?
Here.
Jeff Constance?
Yes.
Doug Davis?
Present.
Charles Whiteman?
Here.
Chris Collins?
Here.
Jennifer Holloway? Not coming. Travis Day? Bill Badaraka?
He's online.
Is he?
Was on.
Bill? Yep. Okay. Count him. Vince Wilczek? T. Wright Dickinson? There we go. Patrick Damon O'Toole? Jonathan Bowler?
Here.
All right, 20.
Kristen, did you go back when you, Alden is dual with Mario Sullivan?
Yeah,
Oh, did you get Mario?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sitting in my office together here in Rangeley. Watch
Okay.
me on the big screen.
All right, that's 22 voting members, then.
Okay. So, let's go around and have anybody in the room that's done on the roundtable that hasn't had a chance to say they're here. Can you, Jenny, just,
Oh, Sean Hosty.
did you get that, Kristen?
Introduce yourself.
Sorry. My name is Jenny Fritzen. I'm just here as a guest. Thank you very much for having me. And I am Friends of the Amazon.
Okay,
Jennifer?
Hi, everybody. Jennifer Wellman with the Nature Conservancy.
I think Aaron's back in the back.
Aaron, Mike, Colorado, Midwest Resources.
Thomas County, Tri-State, I have no responsibilities for whatsoever, cause Jack is.
He gets all the responsibility.
Okay, and I think you can just pick up the ones that are online. Okay. All right, so, we're down to a review and approve the, meeting agenda. Due to a scheduling conflict, I would like to request the, move up a little bit or down, whatever. Valley. So we have the committee reports, 12C, the Big River Committee and the IVCC. We'd like to split those up and have the Big River Committee, right after number 8, so right after Black Camblin. So there'd be like an 8A or something. But we'd like to do the Big River Committee report. Then takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll leave the IVCC committee report where it's at. So any other changes to the agenda that anybody sees?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, Ken, ready the motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Chris Collins seconds. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. So we will squeeze in the Big River between Mike Campbell's CWCB board member presentation and the actual presentation, so. Okay, so our next item is review. So we did not have a quorum in Meeker on July 9th. We had 14 people. We need 16 for a quorum. So we have quorum tonight. So we've got both the May 14th minutes to approve, and which should have been approved July 9th, and we've got the July 9th minutes to approve. So can you want us to throw those up? Has everybody had a chance to look at them?
Okay.
Yeah, good one.
So,
I mean, we wanna read them now, but,
yeah, no, I've been,
Hard copy.
Yeah.
Hard copy.
Yep.
yeah, I've been through the May 14th minutes. I didn't see anything that needed correcting. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance.
Brenner moves approval of the May 14th minutes.
I'll will second that. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, does anybody want a little bit more time to peruse them, or are we good for a vote? Okay, hearing none, let's. So all in favor of accepting the May 14th minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, the July 9th meeting minutes. They look pretty good. I talked to. The only thing that I wanted to change was in the voting members present on the 9th. Sonia was the first meeting, was the first attendee on the minutes for May, and her first name is in the July 9th, but she wasn't at the meeting. So I'd just like to have Kristen remove Sonia and start the members present with Doug Overton.
Just her name. We don't want
Yeah.
you to remove Sonia. Just her name.
Yeah, so I'd just like to strike Sonia from the voting members present. Other than that, I've been through the minutes, they look pretty good. No decisions were made on those minutes as we didn't have a quorum.
So. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so Jeff moves to approve with the striking of Sonia as the edit to the minutes. Do I have a second?
Brenner, second.
Okay. So I have a motion in a second. All in favor of accepting the minutes with the one correction on voting members present, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. The ayes, oops. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. So public comment. Item 6, do we have anybody that wanted to comment in the room? Or online? Anybody who wants to comment on anything that, any item that's not on the agenda? Did we get any comments from anybody on our Yampa White Green admin? Okay. Okay, so hearing no public comment, we'll move on to 7. CWCB budget and report. And I know Jeff is on the agenda, but Jeff is not here today.
Yeah, so apologies for Jeff not being here, but I'll be pinch hitting for him today.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry for all those of you who don't know me, Sam Stein, CWCB. Got just a couple things to go for. I'll go through them quickly, and if y'all have any questions, feel free to fire them away. So last month, DNR announced ColoradoRiver.com, a new online resource for the Department of Natural Resources designed to help promote knowledge of the Colorado River across the West, and engage on this topic as well. A lot of you probably know, but the CWCB's C9 Summit is taking place this year on October 28th, which is the main conference day, and the 29th, which will be meetings and workshops in Lakewood at the Sheraton Denver Hotel. Registration is now open, and additional details you can find at engagecwcb.com. And I will drop the registration link here in the chat. Reimbursements will be available for up to 10 roundtable members from each basin, and we'll be able to reimburse up to 2 nights of lodging and the travel mileage as well. Moving on to some fiscal matters, we've got 10 million available for the wildfire and flood impact loans. These loans are available for eligible applicants either serving or receiving water from areas under a governor's emergency declaration. So feel free to reach out to Matt Stearns with any questions on that. Moving on to water supply update and drought conditions. Obviously, drought conditions persist in the basin, but there's been some improvements in the last week or so with D4 conditions clearing across the West Slope, and a little bit less D3 in the basin. Obviously, conditions are still fairly poor, but hoping for additional precipitation and improving conditions. But CWCB still continues to monitor drought in the basin and across the state. Just a couple quick reminders here. The WSRF deadline is October 1st. and the water plan grant deadline is December 1st. Just a little note about this past cycle. Staff is recommending 56 of the 81 application, which amounts to about $25 million across all water plan grant categories. If all of them are approved by the board, 12 million will be left for the December cycle. Just a couple quick notes on a few upcoming events. The last Fluvial Features webinar is taking place on October 14th from 10 to 11. In the last DWR Ag Water Protection Water Rights Stakeholder Meeting for diversions 3 through 7 is September 23rd. Virtually at 1 o'clock. The Water Conditions Monitor Committee is also virtual and taking place on 9/23 from 9:30 to noon. And we've got an upcoming CWCB board meeting up next week in Durango. So I can drop links for a few of these that I've mentioned, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions? I know Sally sent out 2 days ago that the brochure or that the announcement that signups for the C9 are available. They are willing to pay for 10 slots. The 2 IBCC reps are paid from another account, so that's 10 members. So if you want to sign up and you want to be reimbursed for your costs, please email me so I can just keep track of, make sure we don't exceed the 10. So,
But we want to send 10.
if we can, yeah, we'd like to send everybody we can. Won't be as fun as last year, like Lakewood's not as fun. The field trips are,
The people are.
the people are fun, the field trips are not as exciting. So anybody have any questions for Sam in the room or online?
Sam, this is Ken. The USGS Water Science Workshop, that's, I wasn't familiar. Is that an annual event?
Sorry,
So
do you
the
mind?
September 24?
Not sure if that was from Sam, but I'm not sure if it's an annual event. I believe it's taking place in Grand Junction, but it's also a virtual option. And it's really, they've got some really interesting topics.
They
So
have
I can
really-
send out a reminder.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's also, I believe, on the website.
Yeah, there's.
I put it on the button on the website. There's some really interesting topics.
Very Okay. All right, Sam, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for filling in for Jeff.
Yeah, always happy to do so. Next time in person.
There you go. Mike? You have anything? like-
Not a whole lot more than what Sam said, pretty much everything he was gonna say, got it covered for me. We have a portion of our meetings next week, we've got a finance committee on the 16th, and then the next 2 days are our board meetings. I think there's 2 grants from this basin that we'll be working on, voting on.
Water plant grants.
Yeah, and then we have 2 history flows that looks like it's on the agenda for this area too.
When's your Shoshone Water Rights hearing?
They're gonna, I thought it was gonna be this meeting, but I'm not seeing it on the agenda. They're gonna discuss it in executive session, so.
Yeah, I thought we were discussing the process.
The hearing is next.
Is it next week?
It begins at noon on Wednesday, I believe. And it's scheduled for at least the full Wednesday afternoon and probably at least half of a Thursday.
Oh,
Yeah.
That would be great if you could just repeat that and give the date.
Yeah, so it starts, I think it starts noon-ish. I'm not sure the exact time on Wednesday, the 17th. And then we'll go at least a full 8 hours. I'm not sure, they scheduled time for each. Party essentially, and I'm not sure how long it's scheduled.
Is there a link to how we can see that?
So the CWCB has all their, I should be letting Sam say this, but all of their board meetings are on YouTube, so yeah, you don't have to register or anything. Google their YouTube page. Easy to watch.
Yes,
For your tour.
yeah, because me was giving you
The busiest day.
after hearing Andy's explanation at the water conference, I'm sorry to miss it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, sorry, Ken, I know it's like, okay.
Be good entertainment.
Anything else, Mike?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
One question, I don't wanna put Mike on the spot, but you have a little bit more information on this ag water rights protection deal going on, mention?
I don't have a whole lot more information on it, no. So you're talking about the legislation that's coming down the pipe in January.
I think so, you mentioned that they were gonna have on the last stakeholder meetings coming up September, I didn't know if you had any interest in that.
Yeah, so definitely we've got to keep an eye on it.
So Mike, is that,
Go ahead.
so isn't that, tell me again what the name of it is, like,
It's ag water rights protection.
yeah, I think that already passed and they're using it on the eastern slope, and they come over here and we're gonna have input sessions, right? Is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, they're having the last stakeholder
Yeah.
meeting coming out.
And I did not get to any of those. There happened to be a little items. It's in input, so.
Oh, but I can't put that there, but yes.
As you say, I don't know if I can give an update, but like Will said, there is a virtual meeting coming up, the stakeholder meeting. And that'll be the first one I'm gonna get this in style. I think we all get the general concept, right? Like, what? But it's too late.
That's maybe why I brought it up, is I think it's kind of nuanced a little bit, I don't think everybody's really clear on what's happening with it, but it's, you know. And I don't even know if we have much interest in this group about what's going on.
Well, so in general, what it does is it allows a water user to quantify their, it allows a water user to quantify their historical consumptive use without an end beneficial use, which is completely different than your standard water board application. You have to have an end beneficial use or it's considered speculative. But this ag water protection program, water rights protection program, allows somebody to come into court, not change their water right, they're quantifying their historical consumptive use. And then later down the road, there's an interested person to use their historical consumptive use. And there's timeframes and limits on that too, as to how long you use their historical consumptive use for this other purpose. So that's in a very team fashion.
Thanks for that, it kind of helps with maybe future water leases or something like that, doesn't it?
What's that?
It kind of helps benefit or streamline some of like future water leases. From
Oh,
ag
absolutely. It'll streamline it.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, anything else for Mike? Hearing none, let's switch to the Big River Committee. Update, which is Jeff and Rebecca.
So, yeah, let's go ahead and start with the hydrology update because you guys all seem so happy and cheerful now that we can fix that. While Rebecca's getting ready to share, I want to tell any of you who didn't hear earlier that November will be my last meeting as the chair of the Big River Committee. And that's not a decision that I took lightly or that I'm very happy about. I'm sorry, but it's something that kind of needs to be done. I do want to say that working with you guys and the work that we've done together has really been fun and interesting for me, and I think it's been important. So I'm looking forward to this roundtable and the Big River Committee continuing and carrying forward and being one of the big voices in the Western Slope. So thanks for that, and I'll be sorry to miss you guys. So with that, Rebecca. Oh, but if you're interested at all in being the chairman of the Big River Committee, if you'd be willing to get a hold of Ken and I. And by the way, that of course extends to my IBCC role as well. So we'll be looking for a new IBCC representative as well.
And will you remain a member of the roundtable?
Probably not after November. So need to elect an at-large member, but as soon as I can, I'll come back and work with you as best I can. Okay, so with that, Rebecca.
Okay, well, I don't wanna make everyone too depressed, but it's been a rough water years, we all know, we're currently in an extreme drought, I believe, one step below exceptional. For pretty much the whole west slope, we all kind of know how rough it is, so I'm not gonna talk too long, but I do just wanna start with the White River Basin and just point out that there were actually two kind of periods this fall and August where the White River actually at its lowest flow ever in 120 years of recorded history. So that's not great. You can see that on this graph, that black line is the water year flow, and then all the other lines are all the other years. And you can't really see the gray line that's like the minimum year, but that black line goes below the minimum year line a couple times where that red circle is. So that it's not great. Definitely not a coincidence that we saw the fourth largest wildfire in Colorado history in the White River Basin as well as elk fire. So pointing that out, and then the Yampa is not as in rough shape as the White, but did have a pretty low water year. I want to, point out too, we talked about this at the Big River meeting that, a lot of what was available in the White River flow wise this year was due to a lot of really awesome collaborative partner efforts to do reservoir releases. So, there's tons of groups that do that. The Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District, Friends of the Yampa, Colorado Water Trust. I know I'm forgetting one. The River District does releases out of Elkhead, but I think this was just a really great year to highlight how important those reservoir releases are. For being able to, we kept the call off for it's not on yet. So call's been kept off this year. The Yampa, and then also it's just great for the river, obviously, to have more than 0 CFS. So yeah, that's where we are with that. And then on a kind of a big river look to give you just a brief glance of something I thought was really interesting in a tragic way this year. This is showing the Lake Powell inflow records, and that black line is essentially the past year and a half or so of inflow, and it's different other colors are the kind of bands of average or above average or below average inflow amounts. And you can see last year where that black line bumps up, that was during the spring runoff, and we had some inflow into Lake Powell. And then you go down that black line and you're like, where is this year's inflow? Because we didn't really have that much inflow into Lake Powell. So just think this is interesting in a really tragic way that it was just not a good year for inflow into Lake Powell. So we are looking at pretty low reservoir levels as they have been low. But Lake Powell is now at 29% full, which is lower than it's been the past couple years. And we've been looking at some low reservoir levels for some of those upper basin reservoirs like Blue Mesa at 55% full. So not a rosy picture, but yeah, I'll leave it with that. Unless anyone has questions.
Okay, any questions for Rebecca?
I think one part of the discussion we had that's important is to note that those reservoir levels include the dead pool, water that's not going to be able to come out of those reservoirs. So the situation is actually more dire than it looks.
Yeah. I'm
Hard to
afraid
say,
you're right.
it's hard to believe.
Sal, can you just go to the Big River Committee update slides real quick? We just have one, there we go. Down a couple. Look, just slide number 3. Okay, so, very quickly, there's not a lot to report about, post 2026 negotiations. There hasn't been a lot of movement. I think we're all aware, should be all aware that rather than co-management of the reservoirs on the basis of levels and sort of the mechanics that we've used in the 2007 interim guidelines, that there's really been a new concept kind of come forward, which we often refer to as natural flow. It just means how much water is available and how are we going to split that up. Dividing that available water has kind of been the sticking point, and I think it just continues to remain real difficult. So, if Amy were here, she would stop right there. There just isn't a lot to say about that. But Raquel Flinker, who attended the Big River Committee meeting, reminded us that the interim 25-26 plan, which came out of the crisis year, if you remember that the minimum Powell release for the interim this year and next year is 7.48 million acre feet. That's what the Bureau of Reclamation agreed when we couldn't reach the 7-state agreement. Now think back to Rebecca's slide with almost no uptick of inflow to Lake Powell. You guys can remember, we used to call this the 35-25 problem. Remember that? At 3,525 feet in elevation, it became difficult to run the generators at Lake Powell. Below that, it was risky. They kind of squeezed that down a little bit to 3,500 feet. Now they call it the 3,500 foot problem. I would suggest, and I'm not mapping the curves or anything, I don't think you get 7.5 million acre feet out of Lake Powell this year without falling below 3,500 feet. So something's got to give. Okay, right now, for the negotiations, the deadline for the 7-state agreement is the 11th of November. Those guidelines have to be in place by August of next year because that's the contracting period. Remember, the water year starts on the 1st of October. One person's opinion is that if a 7-state agreement is not reached, I don't know if you guys can remember way back to January when we talked about the NEPA process and the 5 alternatives, including the no action alternative, which everybody agrees is off the table. The very first one that was an actual alternative was called the federal authorities alternative. Remember that? That's the one where they said, we don't have to do anything. If the 7 states don't reach an agreement, we have statutory authority to operate the system, and we don't need you to agree. They have since changed the title of that to the federal authorities contingency. That's a reflection, I think, of this administration's attitude, the Bureau about that. But from the people I know from the inside, there's still a lot of traction for that among the Bureau of Reclamation. And something's very like that. I don't know if you remember the brackets. It was like the minimum was 5 released from Powell's 5 million acre feet. It went up to about 9.5 million acre feet. And it was based on supply, total availability of water, good hydrology. And I think they did include the rest of the crispy units. So Navajo, Blue Mesa, Flaming Gorge, and some of the smaller ones. So if nothing happens, that's my bet. My bet is it will be something like that federal authorities contingency. And that's as much speculation probably as we should be doing right now. But I think a 7-state agreement is a long shot. That's my opinion. Okay, questions about that, or does anybody want to yell at Rebecca for that really lousy report?
Bad report. Will it help?
Do what I can
She-
for you.
She does a great job and she's gonna keep on doing that job and more, so.
Jeff,
Okay.
if I can add really quick, Jeff mentioned my colleague Brooke Flinker. I think a lot of you guys know, or all of you know that, Dave Cancer with the River District retired earlier this year. He was kind of our science person, but then also our director of interstate. So he, my role is more like, within Colorado, Dave Cancer was like kind of the person who looked at the Big River discussions, the negotiations, and represented the West Slope and all of that. Raquel Flinker was promoted to that position, so she was previously in my position in Gunnison, but now is the Big River person. So you're always welcome to contact me, but if you have a Big River concern or question, feel free to reach out to Raquel and just know that there's also someone representing West Slope specific interests and looking out for West Slope as all these conversations are happening. So just wanted to throw that out there.
She seems pretty sharp by
She is
now.
very sharp, yeah. And also, Jeff, thanks to you for all of your many years of being on the Big River Committee. You put your heart and soul into it. Appreciate it.
Any questions for Jeff or Rebecca? Yeah, Jackie.
Sorry, just have a quick comment. We were talking, Mike and I earlier, that, when the Big River Committee first started, the whole point of getting together was to look at demand management and how this basin would
Yep.
consider a demand management in the basin, and, I just, very impressed with what you've done, Jeff, in educating everyone and where they can find information and the information that is available. Obviously, we know that has increased over time, the accessibility of that information, but maybe as we go forward, we consider how that initial meeting started, and if we need to talk about that ever again, as we see the state engineer doing his ponderance over the compact curtailment rules in 2026.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Well-
Jackie. Oh, go ahead.
I would just say that, one of the things about this roundtable that makes it so important in our region and does a great job is the organizational concept that Jackie had, that, we, back in the day when we divided into Big River sort of policy things and grants, those guys worked so hard, and Pepple, hardworking group, and that organization is, has really served this roundtable in this area well, and, so that all started back in the day when Jackie said, I think we should be thinking about Big River issues. That's
So
how.
I never thought about it like you did, but.
Well, and one step further is, remember, we worked on this demand management stuff, which we were all just trying to get our brain around, and we actually ended up writing a position paper, which was not all that well received initially, but it kind of began a snowballing effect of different roundtables. I remember when we, there was, one of our several papers that we presented turned out to be a big hit at the big water plan adoption in 2023. Everybody's like, what are you guys doing up there? And can you come and present? And we actually ended up presenting to 4 other roundtables about what we were doing with the Big River Committee. And it's paid fruition in that we now have a much stronger voice, which I'll elaborate later today as part of the IBCC report, which I'll wait till later. I think it's more appropriate time later in the meeting.
Yeah.
So unless you have something else, I think the next item is
So I
Matt.
think that
Yeah, Doug's got his hand up.
Doug Monner-
Oh, Doug.
So I just want to beat the drum again a little bit more for Jeff too. Thank you very much. I was on the River District Board, and I was on the Upper Yampa Board, and I was a county commissioner, and this 2026 stuff, nobody saw anything that was going down with this stuff. So we really had our hands underneath our butts with all that thing. So thank you, Jeff, and for all your leadership and putting things together. So you did a great job for us. And yeah, we should have never been left behind like we did. So thank you.
Well, and to Jackie as well, because Jackie was on the Water Conservation Board. And I remember in March of 2020, we had a big 2-day conference down in Lakewood. And talked about demand management. We had all these different working groups, and that was all came from the Colorado Water Conservation Board in response to the discussion about demand management and the efforts that we had initiated, at least here. So thanks for that support.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Rebecca. Okay. So into the presentations, the first speaker, Matt was gonna talk about the headwaters of the Colorado project, but Matt's unable to be here, so Ken's gonna fill in for him on that.
Let me get there.
Did you get bumped off? Where I am?
Under.
Did you put it into the packet? 'Cause I just,
I just have to, but it's not, hold on. I can't go.
go just to your email.
Oh, yeah. Let me try and screen share. Okay.
All right. We'll take this, this is the tour that's gonna be on the 17th of September. We will meet at 9 AM at the State Park at Steamboat Lake. And there'll be a 1-hour presentation there, and then we're gonna visit 4 sites in that immediate area. And then we'll go ahead and head on up into Wyoming, into that, follow the little snake drainage up. And we'll end up in Bags that evening. The following day is a steering committee for the Headwaters group meeting in Bags. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about who Headwaters of the Colorado Initiative is all about. Matt Smith is our coordinator. We hired Matt back in January. And I've been serving as the chair just because I didn't know what else to do with myself. So the next slide, please. This is has an awful lot to do with this character, which I think many of you knew pretty well. Pat O'Toole was a real force in balancing functional agricultural and conservation efforts, and really had a vision about how they could live concurrently and really support each other. And so he was a very avid conservationist, and at the same time has thousands of cattle and sheep, and is a huge ag operation. The Ladder Ranch on the Little Snake is one of, if not the oldest ranch here in Northwest Colorado. Certainly right at the confluence of Battle Creek and the Little Snake. Pat served in the legislature. He was president of the Family Farm Alliance. He testified in Congress. He was on a first name basis with Senators Enzi and Barrazo and Hickenlooper and Bennett and Romney, and I mean, went on river trips with him and could call any of them whenever he wanted, and testified to these same things about how important it was that you could be both a conservationist and be an advocate for the for agriculture. The Ladder Ranch received the Leopold Award, Conservation Award, which comes from Sand County Conservation Group. And it's just one of the many honors that Pat had. So he built this legacy. And in the fall of 23, we formed a charter and started meeting as a steering committee on a monthly basis. And Jonathan Bowler over here was our first coordinator, and was a huge part of the initial success that we had as a group. Next slide, please. Who are we? Well, this is basically all the state and federal agencies, local government representatives, NGOs, property owners. It's both, and we have ranch representatives from both Colorado and Wyoming. And we're trying to make sure that all of these territorial boundaries don't exist. That, wild animals and water and fire don't care that there's a boundary there. We need to look at the landscape as a whole. So this includes a lot of the Yampa River. The Little Snake is about a third of the Elk is another third. Elk Head Reservoir and Elk Head River is a lot. And then I think Fortification Creek is also included in our boundaries. And the idea is that we can work together and that we're stronger and more effective by working together on these issues. You can see the board. Another member here that's present is Tim Sullivan. We've got a executive committee that is myself and Shayna and Tim Redmond and Matt Marshall and a representative from Western Landowners Alliance who's had they handled a lot of they're basically been our HR department. We're, by the way, in the final phases of negotiating a new agreement with the Yampa Valley Sustainability Council to be that entity. Next slide, please. Here's the map. See the Wyoming-Colorado border. You're basically from Steamboat to Craig, all the Fortification Creek up through Bags. You follow Muddy Creek all the way to the headwaters, and then you follow that drainage. It excludes all of this western part of the Little Snake, but it has the Continental Divide as the east boundary. So you can see it's almost half and half between Wyoming and Colorado. Next, please. The National Forest Foundation is one of 3 quasi-governmental organizations in the United States that's allowed to receive money directly from the Forest Service. And so they have been our primary financial sponsor. Shayna and Luke and Carter have been enormous help, and that whole staff really has done some heavy lifting for us to keep this thing moving forward. They've got a ton of experience. They work with a number of different organizations like ours, and their structure, their accountability, their credibility has been an enormous asset for this effort. Next slide, please. We started off with a few funds, I think, that came from, I think even the Nature Conservancy, but I think Trout Unlimited, Walt Foundation, all gave small amounts, in the tens of thousands of dollars initially. Our first large funding came out of the National Forest Foundation, money that they forwarded through the U.S. Forest Service. Seems to be the new model for the new administration, is to try to have less formal government and more subcontractors or citizens groups doing a lot of the work. So that's what we're seeing there. We did receive a Water Smart grant from the Bureau of Reclamation for $300,000. That's a planning grant. Tim is serving as the kind of the coordinator steering committee member to kind of help guide that planning process over the next couple of years. We also, along with that, is the Colorado Water Conservation Wildfire Ready Watershed grant application. It's approximately 500, it's more than 500,000, but it's that ballpark. And then there's a number of private funding sources that we're exploring. We also we do have a pending awards from Bucket Tui Bureau of Rec funding. There's 2 different ones that were received. One of them is specific to the Medicine Bow Forest Office that Russ Bacon was heading at the time it was submitted. Dawn is what's Dawn's last name? Albrecht. Anyway, she's the new, and she just attended our last steering committee meeting. They're all in on this. So that was 32.6 million. There's another 8 million that went through the conservation district, old soil conservation district, on the Little Snake that Larry Hicks runs. And they also received, 3 years ago, they received an NRCS, US Forest Service Joint Chiefs award of 9 million. It was the largest award ever done by the Joint Chiefs. And so they spent that $3 million a year for 3 years and did a lot of really great work up in the Little Snake drainage. And then just, this plan, it's kind of an interesting group in that Larry and a lot of these folks have been doing this work for decades. And yet there's also a brand new planning effort saying, okay, what have we forgot? Where do we have additional opportunities? And fortunately, we have some really good representation that's helping us look in places that we hadn't really looked in the past. And we think we're going to do a heck of a job in the future. So some of the types of projects that you can see, different locations, you have, there's always some product removal. That's a really important focus for the new administration, federal administration. And you can see that it actually stimulates, it gets rid of the old forest. A lot of this forest is over 100 years old and is almost carbon emitting. This young vegetation that takes place after mastication really helps to bring back young, vibrant, carbon absorbing vegetation. Next slide, please. Here's another example. This is looking off of Highway 70 out south, and this back at Battle Mountain. And this is an area that they've done. You don't do the whole hillside, but you can see the difference in the vegetation before and after. This is really only a couple of weeks later. And I have another slide that I didn't get in here, but if you get in there, even just a couple of weeks later, you'll see all kinds of very young, tender growth coming forward. That's great vegetation for and habitat for wildlife, as well as the grazing operations that take place. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of the work that they've done on the Little Snake River. This is a $1 million project here, Trout Unlimited supported, as well as some other grant funds that Larry was able to come up with. But this is to stop the non-native species from moving upstream. This river is just downstream of Bags, a couple miles. This is an example of one of the headgate infrastructure projects that they do, because it's when they do a headgate, they don't just go in and replace the headgate. They work on the riparian habitat for hundreds of yards upstream and downstream, and it's really these are state of the art. And if you ever wanted to see how we should be doing all of our irrigation stuff, or that we're going to end up having to do it, Little Snake's already done it. Next picture. There's also been some wetlands work done about 20 miles north of Bags. This is the confluence. This is south. That's where where Bags is. The little Muddy Creek goes on up here. This is the West Fork coming in, and Muddy Creek dries up probably 7, 8 years out of 10. So for them to be able to create this hundreds of acres of wetlands out there in the middle is really quite a project. This is a little bit of the river restoration work they've done. Next slide, please. Here's another view from down near the wetlands area, and some of the wildlife that you're going to see there. They've documented over 200 different species of migratory birds in this area from this project. And interesting enough, they served Larry the day that they started damming this thing up, because they didn't have the permits or whatever to what they wanted to get done here. But when the head of the Bureau of Reclamation was out to visit a couple of years ago, and she saw the project, she said it was one of the 10 best projects that she had in the United States. Next slide, please. We won't have time to go up there, that's why I'm showing you some of this stuff. Couple of the things that we have going on is the tour. I just gave you a quick explanation. We're working on trying to be prepared for wildfire resiliency. It's obviously, I'm sure Rio Blanco County is gonna share some war stories on that here later today. We do have we had applied for an $8 million of funding. We didn't receive any out of the initial award, but they did find another $8 million in Joint Chiefs. And we were named as one of the 5 recipients of that $8 million. We don't know whether we're getting $100 or half of it. We will find that out, I guess, soon. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're in that final phase of negotiating an operating agreement. I think that's this Friday that we'll do the final negotiation for this new partner that we will have as part of the steering committee and the Headwaters of Colorado initiative. Next slide, please. And this is from one of the previous tours. This is up on 70 looking south out across the landscape. This is the agency people and stakeholders and steering committee members that are making this up. So I'll take some questions if you have any. Otherwise, if you could please tell us how many, if you're going to come to the at least the first part of the. If you don't care to go up into Wyoming, that's okay. The way we've set this up is we start at Steamboat Lake. Everything is in that area. We'll have lunch there. And then if you wanted to not go on up into Wyoming, understand, you can go ahead and turn around at that point. And but we would like to know how many people to fix lunch for, because we're trying to fix a really nice lunch. That's everything I have.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, please, Tim.
I've just been struck by how valuable the framework that CWCB has created for wildfire ready watersheds is for thinking about a watershed, because we're under an obligation with the Water Smart grant to do a broader watershed plan in addition to the wildfire ready action plan. But the way CWCB has structured the data collection requirements for the wildfire ready action plan to really get you an understanding of the hydrology in our forests and ecosystems, how they might change with or without fire, identifying opportunities for fixing that, and down to, we're doing 7th level watersheds. We actually got the number today. There are 1,219 7th level watersheds. That'll be our planning units for this landscape, which is daunting, but also gives us a real chance to identify, as you said, the gaps that we've missed. So I give huge credit to CWCB in thinking this through and being proactive with this.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's it's really exciting to be part of something that has a long history of really doing a lot of projects, and at the same time willing to take a look in the mirror and go, where are we at? What do we need to prioritize? What have we forgot to do? So anyway, we'd be thrilled to have you come up and take a look at what we're doing. Brent?
Yeah, just a question, 2 questions. You might not be able to answer that first one thoroughly. What's your confidence level in any of that $8 million, number one? And number 2, I think I know the answer to that. Is there contingency plans to try to keep this process moving forward projects? That's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, we have high confidence that the bucket 2E money, that 40 million, will come through. The 8 million that was up here is from the Joint Chiefs. Joint Chiefs is the NRCS and Forest Service get a pocket of, I think it's $40 million that they get, and they award that to projects. And like I said, in the previous 3 years, they had received the largest award ever done. So they applied for another 8 million, didn't receive it, didn't make the first cut, but they came back with an additional 8 million. And we know of those we were one of the 5 projects that will receive some of the 8.
No, that's not correct, Ken. We were awarded 8, but only 2.6 has been appropriated. So we have 2.6 guaranteed.
Oh, I haven't seen that
And
number.
it's up to Congress to appropriate money for the future years of Joint Chiefs. It's authorized, but hasn't been appropriated. So who knows what will happen in future years, but 2.6 is in the FY25.
So they don't have a $40 million appropriation, they had an $8 million appropriation?
No, we got 8 million. Yeah, I don't know how much the other 4 projects got, but we were awarded 8.
Oh, we were awarded.
But the 8 doesn't exist, that's Ken, Frank is. But 2.6 doesn't exist.
Thank you for clarifying that, Tim. I did not know that detail.
Thank you.
You have a hand up?
Hey, Andy.
Thank you, and thank you, Ken, for all the information. Obviously, a pretty ambitious project, and I'm going to assume that out of the wildfire ready analysis, you're going to identify plenty of work to be done on U.S. Forest Service lands. Do you all at the Headwaters of the Colorado Group, do you have an existing good neighbor agreement to be able to implement that work on federal property, or are you partnering with another agency for that process? Thanks.
Yeah, the State Forest Service is within the collaborative and they have good neighbor authority to operate on private lands as well. And so they are executing within that Joint Chiefs Award, there's a fair chunk of it going to Colorado State Forest Service for work on private and Forest Service lands.
And you'll see some of that good neighbor authority in the tour. There's a site that I think maybe 2 sites that are both Forest Service and private land jointly done together. Chris?
How are you guys getting your NEPA done? How are you getting NEPA done on the US Forest, the forest?
What we have in place now is what was already done. Tim, you know more about that.
All the projects that are in the B2E and Joint Chiefs have already completed.
When what guys start that?
They've been going for a while, but they're big projects. So the Wyoming side has done this land lava project where they did conditional based NEPA across all of the watersheds, so they can tee up a lot of projects. The Round side has done enough NEPA, but if we identify new projects, who knows how much.
The bucket 2E money is through 31, if it does come through.
Yeah, but it's all covered. All the NEPA is done. That was actually one of the requirements of Bureau.
Yeah, just for
the
projects that are identified, but nothing for the future.
At the moment, no, but Forest Service has got broader categorical exclusion authority now for fuels reduction projects, so that short circuits things quite quickly, for better or worse.
Thanks for your attention. Okay. There, Bert.
I wanted to check to see if Amber is still online. She has an infant and may or may not.
Not seeing.
Okay, she may have dropped off. In which case, I will forge ahead. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Wellman with the Nature Conservancy. I'm here to just provide a brief update about the Yampa River Collaborative. It's an outgrowth of the Integrated Water Management Plan that happened back in 2019 through 2022, roughly. Number of organizations that you see here came together in 2023 and decided to continue to move forward with projects and concepts that were developed at the time of the Integrated Water Management Plan. Amber is texting me. She owes me a beer. That's what she said.
I say several.
It's okay. I wanted to just actually make sure that everybody got, I printed a copy of the Integrated Water Management Plan recommendations that we're gonna refer to during this talk. And Jenny Fritzson, you should feel free to jump in if you like. So the main organizations, nonprofit organizations that came together are the Friends of the Yampa. Jenny's representing them tonight. And that it also includes Lindsay Marlowe and Emily Burke. Yampa Valley Sustainability Council, Tim Sullivan, Brian Messenger, Jayla Poppleton, River Network, supported by Brian Murphy. Community Ag Alliance, that's Patrick Stanko and Amber Pugalis.
myself for the Nature Conservancy along with Andy Bauer. And then Ellie Miller and Parker Cahill from Colorado Trout Unlimited. We meet monthly to talk through projects and strategies for getting work done that was proposed on the integrated management plan. So we would dance. We really just didn't want the IWMP to become another document on the shelf or another great collaboration that lasted for 3 years and then nothing came of it.
5 years.
Was it 5? Well, it started in 2018, I guess. The funding was appropriated by CWCB. And then, yeah, many of you participated in the IWMP. And it was an interesting time during COVID. You know, we had so many online meetings and then we could actually get back together. We met at Carpenter Ranch many times to just talk through what the agricultural and the environmental and recreational balance needed to be for the basin. It was part of the BIP review, and it was also baked into all of the work that we then proposed to you all at the Basin Roundtable. So Yampa River Collaborative came together and put together a charter of sorts that all organizations could agree to. And our purpose is to encourage and support efforts that balance the health of the Yampa River ecosystem with the needs of its human uses. So similar language that came out of the IWMP about balancing ecosystem needs, rancher needs, municipal, agricultural, industrial, all baked in. And so our shared priorities are to support a healthy Yampa River and the ecological function with communities and agriculture through watershed planning, resiliency, future focused planning, project coordination, education, and outreach. And as you know, many of those NGOs do this kind of work all the time. And so it seemed natural for us to put all of our heads together and have kind of compounded impact rather than just taking projects individually as NGOs can't do. So now we're into this IWMP, and I know it's a little hard to read based on the recommendations, but essentially we broke down a lot of the coordinated projects into 4 discrete categories, starting with modernizing diversions and irrigation infrastructure. You know, that's one of my favorite things to do. And the Ag Alliance has been working on that as well. So the sponsors in this column all refer to the entities that are working on individual projects. And then in this column, this is just kind of highlighting the IWMP recommendation that comes off of this sheet and how it applies to these different categories. So the other categories are river and riparian restoration, Yampa River flow protections, and then a bulk of stewardship, the Yampa River scorecard, which I know you're familiar with, a beaver working group, which is kind of a new and interesting conversation that's emerging in the Yampa, and other multi-benefit projects that we're focused on. So any one NGO can focus on projects, but we bring that to the Yampa River Collaborative to discuss and kind of work through challenges, draft letters of support for one another, and provide just general kind of camaraderie in tackling a lot of these issues. Now, the ones that are left untouched or haven't really been addressed are something that perhaps other nonprofits or other private entities might be taking on. That's not to say that we wouldn't take on additional ones, but essentially, you know, prioritizing what comes out of the community-driven process that was the IWMP was our whole point for, you know, continuing this work. And it's
really wonderful to be able to sit down and hear what other people are strategizing on and dealing with or embracing new approaches that have not really been discussed, like the Beaver Working Group. I think that's one of the more interesting collaborations that's happening. And then statewide, as you know, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, they're creating a beaver management plan that will touch down in various areas and help us all come together in coexistence potentially, instead of demolishing beaver habitat and finding ways to translocate beaver from one area to another potentially. So there's a lot of great dialogue that's happening, and I'm open to any questions that you might have, or comments, or inquiry about different projects that we're working on.
And just a comment, a few months ago, CPW showed up at one of our steering committee meetings for the Headwaters and announced that the #1 wildlife priority for CPW on western Colorado is the Yampa Valley.
Upper Yampa, but entire one.
The water.
The entire.
Upper Yampa.
Does that mean they're bringing you wood?
Well, I'm not sure.
I think they already did that.
They didn't show us a map. They just said, you're probably wondering why 3 of us are here all of a sudden.
Any other questions or concerns? I think we'd like to keep you updated. You'll certainly see grant applications potentially in the future from us, but we wanted to, I guess, let you know that the fire's not out. The IWMP still lives. It has a little bit of a different look to it now, but we are interested in working with private landowners and other entities. We're working with a number of, I guess the diversions that are being addressed right now is the nickel diversion on the Bear, the Duquette diversion on the main stem just downstream of Steamboat, the Williams diversion on Carpenter Ranch. Of course, we had lovely success with Maybell diversion. We're also working on a really great project in Morgan Bottom that has to do with river health and keeping ag lands healthy, coupled with the riparian corridor. And low-tech process-based restoration seems to be all the rage. I hope Headwaters of the Colorado is also doing a lot of beaver dam analogs, or just, slowing down the water, letting it infiltrate and regenerate rangelands. That's a big part of at least the Nature Conservancy's efforts right now. Wanna chime in on any other?
And the environmental flow, the Yampa River flow protections for at this point is more conversational. We're talking to the operating water conservancy district and CPW Century program, and just trying to learn as much as we can about what flexibility exists within the system to protect the flows we wish to exist.
Well,
Jennifer, I know when we first started out with this, we were mostly considering like the main stem of the Yampa and some of the tributaries like the Elk River. Are you guys looking at some of these other tributaries at all, or are we still kind of focused on main stem of the Yampa and the Elk?
it's pretty much the whole watershed from the headwaters through to Dinosaur. So yeah, smaller tributaries are being addressed with low-tech process-based restoration. And as Jenny was mentioning, the Bear River and some of the other tributaries that might have an in-stream flow, but that's not being met right now. We're trying to work with landowners to talk about what possibilities exist, and the agencies that are overseeing that. I don't think there's been a ton of projects necessarily coming onto the Elk River, but maybe.
So
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we did I did the outreach for the Ag Alliance, so different projects were identified, but nothing has been done.
No, because we didn't actually study, like, I'm thinking of Williamsburg, we didn't actually study that. But I guess my question was, are you guys kind of branching out maybe a little bit more to consider those tributaries? Is that kind of part of the goals, or?
I think, yeah, if there's a willing landowner who's interested in generating a project or has an idea, that's certainly something we can tackle and talk with them about, but that hasn't come up yet. The smaller tributaries are often the ones, you know, on BLM or Forest Service property, and we've been working with BLM on, you know, discrete areas that they want to focus on, and it's based on their priorities and their landowners and their grazing permits. So, I would say yes, but I've done more of that actually on the White River versus on the Yampa. We have a couple little projects on the Yampa, and I think, you know, Friends of the Yampa is really focusing right now on the Elk River.
This, the scorecard and the stewardship program, which address, I think 9 or 8 of 9 on the IWP recommendations, are limited right now to the main stem of the L, which is a lot, like, already. But I don't think the stewardship program wants to turn down opportunities where there's a need. But I think the focus is on the place to start is the main stem plus the L.
Which was the focus of, as you said, of the IWD, so that we're following roundtables focus on those as part of the IWD.
Done a little bit of work off like Willow Creek, just tributary to the Little Snake. It's just a small project,
But there's a lot of,
great demonstration.
there's a lot of work going on in Elk Canyon Creek, but not necessarily as part of the collaborative, but kind of under the YBSC Forest Service and doing a lot of restoration and headwater development.
And Amber, where does the beaver group stand, or is that? This is the first I've heard that there is one.
Oh,
So are you guys still in the organizational phase, or are you along to start looking at projects, or where does that group, where that stand?
yeah, great question. I think it's still in formative phase, but there are definitely identified projects. A couple of the leaders, one from YBSC and the other from Friends of the Yampa, have been attending the Beaver Institute Beaver Corps training, which is all about flow devices. And if you have a beaver on your property, there's ways to drain the pond so that the pond level doesn't interfere with your agricultural production. So there are, yeah, I think it's informative mode in the sense that we're keeping the momentum moving forward. More people join all the time, so we would love to have members from this group attend. It's really open to anybody. CPW attends, private landowners, you know, Trout Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, Friends of the Yampa, YBSC. We all are supportive and looking for opportunities to understand better how their conflict might arise and what could be done to either resolve the conflict or bring the landowner into some of those other pond leveler devices that could be used for coexistence.
You guys look forward to like running some seminars or educational things locally to educate landowners about that.
Totally.
That's on the radar.
That is definitely on the radar. It hasn't happened yet just because we've been figuring out what is needed and hearing from the folks that trap beaver to the ones that do the translocation, talking about disease and how you don't want to mix. I mean, there's really no holding facility, and that's something that I think CPW is potentially going to be addressing in the beaver management plan about translocation or having some centralized areas where beaver can go into a holding facility and be vaccinated or tested for tularemia or whatever disease might be not wanted in a certain watershed. But really learning from landowners has been a critical piece of this, trying to figure out what the puzzle is and what the outcomes need to be for the species and for landowners.
Thank you.
Scott.
So I noticed, there's some overlap. In terms of project area,
between the Yampa collaboration and the Headwaters Colorado group, and I guess when, you guys are considering projects, are you considering or taking into consideration the IWNP? I mean, is that part of the reason we're here, is to know what each other are doing, or is there any synergy between some of these groups that have overlapping project areas?
Yeah, there's members that, Tim would be a good example, somebody who's attending a lot of these. He's here at the Roundtable, he's on the Headwaters, he's part of this group as well. So there's some of that, but where Headwaters is at right now is a planning process coupled with work that's already been in the works for a long time, years and years, if not decades. So beaver reintroduction is a newer topic that we're not, I think we're extremely, I know both Matt and I are big advocates of doing Headwaters work. We think that's probably one of the most untapped opportunities that we have in the planning area. But we have to go through the planning process first. But I would assume that we would want to have a synergy with this beaver working group to make sure that they're contributing to that planning effort, and we're looking for opportunities to do something as soon as we can.
And I'll say just really quick, Scott, speaking of that, is part of what the whole Yampa River Collaborative is about is to not do duplicative efforts, since there's a lot of people working in the same landscape. So we know what everybody's doing, and that we can help out if needed.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next presentation.
So our next presentation will be from Liz Chandler of the White River, giving us an update of where the White River Integrated Water Initiative is. Liz, I saw you online,
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Thank you all for the time tonight. Appreciate it. Is that there? Oops.
It's bad.
It was there.
All right. Okay. We go to the second slide, please. Okay. I just wanted to share appreciation for all of the people who have helped us with our projects. The Roundtable, CWCB, the River District Community Funding Partnership, Yellow Jacket Water Conservancy District, and Farmers Conservation Alliance out of Oregon has helped us with grants and has spent a lot of staff time on our projects. And I also probably should have put the Colorado Ag Water Alliance. Greg Peterson is always a wonderful resource and helped to get projects done. And as we're moved through the water initiative, Greg has been really helping individual ditches get grants for both diversion work and also for riparian work. So he hasn't funded us directly, but he certainly is a partner in helping get projects done that are a result of the initiative. Next slide. So on our return flow study, which you guys have done a tour and you had a presentation from Dr. Bailey, we're completing the data gathering this year. The ground water model is past proof of concept. It is functional, and we've been able to use it to run different scenarios. So kind of that what if we have 3 consecutive years of drought? What if it's more than that? And I think that what we're really hoping that people will be able to use that in their management decisions, both at a policy level, making recommendations, but also individual landowners to understand how people's individual use of water does have an impact on the White River. And so that as we move forward, the river can be managed as efficiently as possible. The one thing I really wanted to emphasize is the commitment from the get-go on the part of our planning advisory committee, as well as Dr. Bailey, is that this is a public model. And so his work that he has done with the irrigation module and all that is available for other basins and other groups to use. So if you wanted to use it, say on the Yampa, you do have to put in, of course, all of your information on, elevations, type of soils and that, but the model is available for use. And we're going to have people at the River District as well as within the Meeker area trained on running the model for the what if scenarios on the White River. So we're hoping that this return flow study doesn't just end with this. We're hoping other people will pick it up and use it in your river systems, and we can continue understanding our river systems better. Next.
I presented this project as one of our model projects in the Northwest Colorado for a roundtable, and there was considerable interest in the results of this. Are they reaching out to you or to Dr. Bailey?
I know some people have reached out to Dr. Bailey, and if they're, interested in tailoring the model for their own basin, definitely Dr. Bailey is the person to go to so that they can get all the correct inputs for that model. Next. So our other one is the Big Ditch infrastructure modernization. The crossing work that you guys approved earlier this spring, their engineering is being finalized, and it's one ditch that crosses two different drainages, and where the infrastructure on the ditch, the concrete is kind of falling apart. And so the effort will be to fix that, but also at the same time to separate the waters coming down Coal Creek and Little Beaver, so that they do not commingle with the ditch, and that when the river is under administration, then the ditch can continue to operate. So the engineering work is being finalized, and the ditch company will have to sign off and make sure it meets their requirements. Our goal is to have it completed by the start of the 2026 irrigation season. Next slide. The Big Ditch infrastructure modernization is with 3 big ditches that are to the east of Meeker. The we're going through the NRCS's PL 566 process. The PIFR, which is the initial look that makes sure that the projects fit within the scope of work of the NRCS watershed plan. It has been completed since March, but it is not finalized. So we're kind of stuck in place on that, if you will, until that's finalized. Until it's finalized, NRCS cannot apply for funding for the watershed plan, which is the next step. There was a thing that came out today that the NRCS is going to do some categorical exclusions on some of its work. So I don't know if this watershed plan will perhaps be streamlined and take less than 2 years and cost less money, or if it fits into that or not. But in parallel, we are not just standing still. We are working with the Farmers Conservation Alliance to do a system improvement plan on all 3 ditches. It has been drafted and is being reviewed by Farmers Conservation Alliance right now. Applegate Engineering drafted the plan. The goal of the system improvement plan is to take a comprehensive look at the entire ditch. So 3 different ditch systems from the diversion down to the end of the ditch, and kind of do that dream plan. If you got to do everything to your ditch you wanted to do, what would it be? What would it look like? And then from that, the ditch companies are going to be able to pick their priority projects, and those will then move forward in through the PL 566 process. So we're really hoping that having all of this work done ahead of time, that once we get through to the watershed plan, and through the watershed plan, we'll be able to get into design and construction much, much faster. Next slide. The one thing I did want to mention is the Carrie Brennan and her assessment teams did complete the diversion and riparian assessments in 2024. And the result of that is we're having quite a few riparian and diversion projects that are being designed and implemented along the White River. You have any questions?
Yeah.
Andy?
Yeah, thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. I just have a couple questions about the PL 566 process. Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District is in the same conduit. We're a little bit ahead of you on our projects, but not too far. And so my question to you is, my understanding is where you guys are now, the next step includes an environmental assessment in the plan EA. Do you plan on continuing with Applegate Group to carry you guys through that as your liaison with the NRCS, or are you still in need of a consultant to go out and get you guys through the plan EA part of the PL 566 process? Thanks.
Thanks. No, it's a great question. The conservation districts will be the ultimate decider on what plan moves forward with that. Right now that it has to be funded. And so when it's funded, my understanding is there's two different options. Is one is we can continue like we have with the PIFR and say the NRCS can be in charge. They can pick their own consultants and do it that way, or the conservation district can decide to put out a request for proposals and choose a contractor and have that contractor be one that the ditch companies would like to work with. I'm not sure that Applegate Group does the environmental assessments. But Farmers Conservation Alliance does do that. And if they were to make a successful bid, that also would be nice because they are very knowledgeable about those 3 ditch systems right now. And so I think with the system improvement plan and their knowledge, that could be a good partnership. But again, that decision's above my pay grade. It's going to be what the ditches want to do and what the conservation districts want to do.
Great. Thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Anybody else have questions for Liz in the room or online?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
Mm.
Do you know, Vanessa, are you online?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Vanessa Trout, has agreed to give us an update on White River Firelands remediation. So, it's all yours, Vanessa.
Okay. Thanks for having me, and sorry I'm missing you all in person. Just had some few deadlines coming up due on Friday, so, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to put together this slide, so it has chock full of information, and I'll be really brief and stay within the 10 minutes here. I did see that Doug and Callie are present, so feel free to comment, middle, during, and after if things come up. Okay, there's okay, so I'm just going to kind of go over some basic information, touch on management and recovery efforts, some funding and coordination, impacts on the economy and community and environment, and then the district's collaboration. Next slide.
Sorry.
Okay, so basic information. August 3rd was the declaration of the elk fire. All said and done, it was about over 14,000 acres. August 5th was the leaf fire declaration. And basically that's, to activate those state resources to combat the fires. I believe it's 99% contained. That was sort of the last data a number that we had. August 5th, FEMA management, they had declared, made a declaration in order for the county to, or Polis authorized it in order for the Colorado National Guard to help with suppression efforts. August 28th, Polis memorialized those verbal disaster declarations again to activate some of those state resources for assistance. Just structures were saved, cattle and animals were mobilized. a lot of the information, it's too early to tell and finalize everything that's happened. So nothing is in concrete yet and in print about final numbers. Next slide.
Vanessa, this Callie, real quick, sorry, if you go back to the slide that you had there, I just want to be careful with the FEMA conversation. I don't believe that that's FEMA. That is that August 5th. We're still working on that, and we keep getting information out there that we've got FEMA coming, and that's not accurate yet. So
I have more
let's-
information that kind of explains that a little bit further in the next couple slides with more detail. Just for clarity, but yes, thank you, Kelly. Management and recovery. So this is kind of before all the fire containment. It's been kind of a crazy month, and I can't believe it's only been a month. There seems like there's so much been happening with the incident management team that was here rotating every 2 weeks with different teams, the emergency operations system, meetings every day, 2 times a day, the cooperators meeting every day. It's been kind of a whirlwind. We've been really directing people to FSA, the Farm Service Agency. They have incredible disaster assistance programs, everything starting with an E for emergency. And that, includes cattle losses and hay and feed and fencing. So we've been directing a lot of landowners to FSA. They have had their committee visit some of the landowners' properties, and they've come back with just some rough statistics so far that 57 entities across the 80 distinct farms, 29 of those are expected to request help from FSA. And with the elk fire, they've, looked at 21 entities across those distinct farms, and 14 are expected to request help. And that includes, fencing and irrigation and head gates, pumps, structures, debris, pasture losses. And there's a lot of, entities involved with those reviews from FSA, the NRCS, BLM, Colorado State Forest Service, US State Forest Service, the county, CWCB. So there's a lot of entities involved in these assessments. And so before the fire containment, so still while the fires are burning, we've just been, gathering and deploying resources, figuring out the programs that we can give to the landowners. We've created between the county and the districts, an ag and business impact survey. And that's basically, for the landowners to fill out, to be able to connect their needs to us so we can figure out exactly where to go for programs and funding. Next slide. So after fire containment, the BLM had an open community meeting, and this was to invite landowners who were affected by the fire to talk about their specific suppression repairs on public land. And that could have been, fencing that they had to remove or go through in order to contain the fire, or dozer lines. The recovery team was deployed, and this was the county natural resources team and the conservation districts. And again, just pooling together resources to help landowners and get them some information. The bear team, so that's the burned area emergency response. Those assessments were happening from the BLM. There's a couple different elements to the bear assessments. The first is to address that emergency stabilization issues after the fire on federal land, and that's basically to prevent erosion and debris flow. And that's the emergency stabilization is performed within 1 day to 120 days of containment, or within 1 year, I guess my slide says. The bar is another aspect of the bear assessment, and that begins within the 5 years of a containment. And so that's really repairs and for, damaged land from the fires, to restore eco functions and combat invasive species and kind of other things along that line for long-term recovery. Let's see, okay, hydrologist, biologist, ecologist, all of those were involved in the bear team assessments, which are still going on, and I think that takes a couple weeks. Next slide. So just kind of recapping some of that, the bear assessments, really those things are focusing on the immediate stabilization after a fire. So just repressing or repairing those suppression damages, culverts, roads on public lands, installing erosion control. The NRCS program, the Emergency Watershed Plan, that's something that we're, looking at for specifically for private landowners where there's been debris flows from the rain after the fires that are going to pose, significant safety concerns, not only structures, but lives. And so they have been out assessing specific properties and will do the entire burn areas to assess and help with erosion stabilization. So that's really what the Emergency Watershed Protection Plan is about. The bear report will show emergency stabilization needs. Okay. And then again, long-term watershed restoration efforts will start coming as the assessments are over. Okay, next slide. Funding and coordination, again, this is a ton of information, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to throw this together, so I'll just kind of highlight the bold. And Callie, this is kind of what I was talking about with a little more information. So the first part was the FEMA was, the county was approved for fire management assistance grants, which went towards sort of suppression and that emergency operations center support. The field tour that we had this week was to determine eligibility for emergency management after the fact. So I guess, Kelly, you can go into more detail about that. The FSA disaster assistance, this was another funding option for landowners that would cover 50% of those practices that were implemented after their committee went and assessed. They're looking at about $12 million worth of damages and expected costs. The NRCS, we talked about the EWP, that would cover about 75% of emergency stabilization efforts on private land. And then the sponsors are still trying to work this out, but the 25% of costs covered by sponsors and other agencies. So there has been exigent assessments done and things that are happening immediately for a few homeowners. The governor disaster declaration, this was, again, Polis authorized the Colorado National Guard to help with suppression efforts, local, state, federal coordination. That, in the last month, I think everybody is just trying to figure out like what we can do and how to help landowners, right? So it's a lot of networking and it's a lot of meetings and getting together private donors, and the county established the Yampa Valley Foundation Fund. There's grants, there's programs, the, Colorado River District is involved, NGOs, cattle growers, et cetera. Everybody is at the table meeting and discussing and want to help, but we just don't know yet what that looks like. And so everybody's kind of standing ready. Public and environmental health planning and building, that's ongoing. Economic health, small business administration declaration, that was not applicable. And then the data information, that's all happening, data modeling, GIS, the bear, sharing information, tracking, all of that is been ongoing within the last month. Next slide. Impacts to the community and the economy. A big portion of the county's income is tied to oil and gas and livestock, and there's been some heavy losses there. The ranchers are facing pasture loss, hay shortages, disrupted operations with livestock and grazing, a lot of irrigation issues, head gates, pumps, outfitters, public land use, recreation is affected. Of course, the Rangeley drinking water with the sediment into the Taylor Dam. And obviously roadway issues from debris flows with the floods from the rains. Ecological, altered elk and mule deer habitats and wildlife areas, the vegetation changes, aquatic ecosystems, and water quality and quantity. Next slide. Just a little bit about the district's collaboration, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, that, you know, all the state and federal assessments are still being finalized. They're still, you know, doing these assessments. And once we figure out those overall project costs and those scopes are, you know, made apparent, then this watershed recovery and stakeholders can all get together, roundtable, and kind of develop that vision of, you know, what these projects are, what this looks like, and then be able to explore those funding strategies, and figure out, you know, what everybody's roles are. What did I write here? Oh, districts. So just some things that the districts have been doing. And, you know, I've had a lot of support with other districts that have been through fires. It's been really great to talk with them and get sort of their lessons learned after fires. So we've done a lot of posting on our website and social media about resources available to landowners, still trying to gather all the programs and grants available that that we can apply for, and also landowners can apply for directly. We're putting together a resources document for that purpose. I mentioned that we had a survey, a natural resources and ag survey for landowners, so we can connect them to, you know, the right programs and funding. We've created a drop-in meeting, a community served drop-in meeting, and that is every Thursday from 1 to 4. And we just encourage landowners to come in and talk and share their stories and communicate what their needs are. We have some newspaper articles, you know, just kind of informing people, educational resources about flooding, sandbags, other things that the districts in the county are offering. Lots of networking, lots of meeting, lots of communicating, and of course, in coordination with the county. Next slide. So in summary, and I hope that was under my 10 minutes here, you know, what we have heard from some of the assessment teams is, you know, 3 to 7 years of recovery efforts, and actually seeing any kind of results. The funding, federal, state disaster funds, coordinating agency support. The community has been hit hard, you know, with agricultural and oil and gas infrastructure, utilities, outfitting and recreation, and of course, wildlife habitats. I put this quote in here because it was something that Kevin, and I can't remember his last name, but he was one of the hydrologists on the assessment team field tour this week. And he said, you just need to settle in for a while, you know, and just things are going to take a while. And, you know, it probably is not happening fast enough for landowners, you know, as they see things happening and they can go out there and fix it themselves. But it's hard for them to hear that they just have to wait, right? And take photos and get all their documents together. But I'm sure it's very difficult to see what's happened to their land and just let that kind of sit there and wait for funding or wait for somebody to tell them, you know, what they can do, or wait for them to fix their land. So that was kind of the quote of the week. We're just going to have to settle in for a while and wait. So that was kind of all I had. I know that was a lot in 10 minutes, but please, Doug and Callie, chime in here, please.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Mike?
Yeah, I had a landowner tell me, last week that and I haven't been able to confirm it anywhere, but he was saying that they were gonna treat, or there was talk of 2 different blacks. One, the actual fire burn, and 2, the back burn black. And that the funding was gonna be different between the 2. Anybody heard that? Can they confirm that?
Well, are you talking public land or private land? Because that would be 2 different funding sources.
He didn't tell me, just, that's all he said was they were gonna treat the 2 differently, but even if it was public or private, I don't know why they would treat them differently.
I would think that those birds fall within the containment area, so it's probably gonna be. Could be treated as similar, but
I think they construed, I, go ahead, let's know, and I'll see if I can come up with how to explain that, because it's kind of tricky. But go ahead, I think Andy has a question, but I'll see if I can come up with it.
And Andy?
Yeah, thank you again, and thanks for being patient with my constant interruptions here, but I appreciate all the information. It was a great presentation. I think we all have been really curious about what the next steps are. My question is back to, I believe you termed it the emergency stabilization efforts. So that obviously could be on, as you referenced, both private and public land. Our experience in the upper basin with the muddy slide burn scar is that United States Forest Service did no emergency stabilization efforts whatsoever after the bear team went through. And that caused significantly damage to irrigation systems on private land that were adjacent to United States Forest Service property. The Forest Service has a prohibition of mitigation efforts to protect private land post wildfire. I know that probably a lot of this is a greater percentage of BLM land and not United States Forest Service. Has there been a commitment from the federal land managers and actual formalization of the funding required for emergency stabilization? Thanks.
It is too early to tell. The BLM is still conducting all of their assessments. What I can tell you is that we have, brought that up. Andy, your point that, anything that happened on BLM and uphill, if that were to affect downhill, residents and landowners, is that something that could be funded? So all of those, all your questions, have been brought up and, they are addressing those.
Thanks. I would just caution you all adjacent to that burn scar that to apply pressure on your federal agencies to get on that early because next spring is going to happen very fast. And I guarantee that these irrigators will suffer significant damage from debris flows and runoff from the burn scar. So it's coming. And I hope the mechanisms are in place to help these agricultural producers because it can get ugly fast. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
So Andy, we've already experienced that, unfortunately, the Piance Creek, it started raining down there, some pretty hard rains before that fire was totally out. So while there was still smoke on the hill, they were flooding. And there are some of those guys that their ditches are totally full of soot and debris, and it's on out across the fields. Got at least one home that's been, it managed to stay out of the home, but I don't know how. The corrals and the barns are pretty full. And the challenge is, where's the next one gonna be? There's so much country. Where's the next one gonna be? But to answer your question, interestingly enough, I don't think we had even 500 acres on the US Forest Service. It was all on BLM, and then the Lee fire, the elk fire was primarily CPW and private land. There was, and I built very little BLM land there. But yes, we are very much aware the way that land lays, how that federal land is going to impact the private. And we have absolutely started those conversations like Vanessa said. So we see it coming. Thanks for the anything you can share to help push. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Then a follow-up question to all that is, are the Colorado federal legislative representatives, Neguse, Hickenlooper, Bennett, all completely involved in this process?
Thanks.
Is it a quick one, Frank, or?
Very quick.
We need to start moving.
Very, just a curiosity question. Vanessa, I'm looking at your funding and coordination slide, and there's about every government
agency, local agency, county agency. Who is the lead agency? Who's coordinating all this? Cause, you know, is the district doing it? Is the county doing it? Who do people call and how do they get the quickest response? Who's the main lead on this? Just curious.
Who's coordinating the funding or?
Everything, just everything in general. Who's in charge? Yeah.
That's a good question. No, everybody, well, when the fires first started, they deployed the emergency operation center. And so within that, you have your emergency operations areas, and that covers infrastructure, public safety, natural resources, transportation. And so there's leads to each one of those functions. And I think there's like 15 of them. And so there's a lead for each of those. And that was during the fire. Now we've moved into the recovery phase. And we are the districts and the county's natural resources person, Reese. I don't know if you've all met Reese. Are sort of, we're in a group and putting all things together. There is an opportunity for perhaps some advice and guidance by a watershed recovery group that we are looking into that could possibly, you know, navigate and guide us. But for right now, it's the county and the districts working together with all the local, state, and federal programs as of yet. And you know, nothing is happening. We're all just gathering data and figuring out what these landowners need. So nothing is really happening yet as far as funding coming in yet, except for the Yampa Fund. We know that there's some money going into that.
Hey, I just want to interject something real quick. You know, fourth or fifth largest fire in the state of Colorado. And nobody in Rio Blanco County has ever experienced anything like this. I mean, this is massive. And we were, Kelly, you were in a meeting, with Vanessa was in a meeting, and you asked a question, what's the bear team gonna do? There was one person in that room that could answer it. There's only one person that had ever participated in a bear assessment before, Kristen. Because she had been on, she was the one, when Kyle was talking about it, there's only one person that, you know, that had been on a bear assessment. So, I mean, this is uncharted waters for everybody here. And, you know, probably the biggest takeaway, I mean, settling for a while, but you know, the hardest, you know, for me, the one takeaway is just trusting the process. I don't understand the process. None of us have ever been through this process. I know that the districts and the county, you know, we are working together with that joint team as far as, and I'm only speaking for natural resource issues, but it's trying to advocate for our landowners for natural resource issues and directing, you know, landowners to the FSA and waiting for these bear teams to come back and give us their assessments. And then I think that's really where the real work is going to start.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, we're 21 minutes already. So
Yep, yeah, it's time to move that. Thanks.
want to keep updates though.
Vanessa, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay, Rebecca?
Well, I will keep it brief, but just to give you all an idea of what the River District has been working on lately. We do have a board meeting and a budget meeting coming up in October. But I'm not gonna focus on that, it's boring. But the Colorado Water Congress conference was in August in Steamboat. I know some of you guys were there, but kind of the overarching topic of the whole conference was system conservation, in form of, you know, buy and dry essentially. And so that was, there's a lot of different panels on that. It was really interesting. I think it's something that's probably coming back sooner rather than later. But kind of as part of that whole discussion, the Water Resources and Agricultural Review Committee met during the conference. And Andy Mueller, our general manager, provided testimony to that legislative committee. to kind of give a West Slope perspective on, system conservation, but then also like interstate matters, and some other topics. So I think there's a recording if you're interested in listening in. It was a really good presentation by Andy of just that West Slope perspective for all of these big issues. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, which I know Aaron might mention, is that Jason Ullman, the DWR state engineer, also announced that they would be beginning the process of looking into rules for how a compact compliance would roll out within the state of Colorado. That's something that we at the River District have been asking for and have been really interested in for a number of years. Just to have some idea of, you know, how West Slope water users can prepare for something like that if it were ever to come into effect. The state and the River District are both, you know, very aware that the Upper Basin has never actually been in a compact compliance issue. There's always been, you know, plenty of water that goes from Powell to Meade, so that's not like an imminent thing. But just something the River District has felt was important to plan for. So that's something that was came out of that Water Resources and Ag Review Committee that I thought would be interesting to share, and Aaron may touch on it a little bit more.
And we've only been asking for that for 15 years, and it's finally they've announced it.
Yeah, the River District has been asking for a long time, so we were really excited to see that that's kind of in the timeline. And then this year, you know, I mentioned this during the hydro update, but those reservoir releases, Yampa River, were a big boost to the river system this year. So that's something that we're really excited about to have for another year with all of our many partners that work on that. And just to add on to Vanessa's presentation, we are also working with the River District stakeholder groups to try to mitigate some of these fire impacts, mostly in terms of water quality. One thing to note really quickly is that our USGS partners were out that last week of August when all those rain events were flushing sediment into the White River. And one of the parameters they measured was E. coli. And they actually had such a high E. coli content that they couldn't quantify it. It was kind of just like off their measurement charts to be able to say how much E. coli was in the river. So in addition to sediment and all the other stuff that we don't even know about, that was just one that really hit home.
So just to clarify, though, yeah, because they made it very clear that not all E. coli is what we think of when we hear of E. coli. So we gotta be really careful with that out there. They're still doing their study, their, testing to verify what it is. So, but I know that Rangeley's working on it pretty hard themselves right now to see everything.
At this point, there's much more unknown than known. We don't really, we haven't tested for metals. There's a whole suite of things that we just don't know. But it's just, yeah, there's some pretty crazy pictures of like their water quality samples with the color of water being really dark. So there's just kind of some potential major issues with water quality that we're still waiting to get more information on. And then just the other plug that our annual seminar is coming up October 3rd. There's some really interesting topics. One of the fun ones that I'm excited about is they're gonna have water headlines, and then you have to guess what year the water headline that the newspaper was written in, which is way harder than we think. This turns out we've had the same problems forever. So that's yeah, there's you can register for either in person or virtual. So either way, but we did plan for a longer happy hour this year, so definitely a plug for the in person. And that's all I have. Any questions from everybody?
Any questions for Rebecca online? Nope, I don't hear anything. You're off the hook. Aaron, you have interference.
Okay, I know we're sure on time, and I always feel less than 5 minutes. I'm probably gonna go more than 5 minutes today, but the common topic seems to be the White River, and I can't help it. I'm gonna spend most of my time on the White River and talk about fire, drought, and flood, which we've already touched on. Sorry, Rebecca, I'm not gonna touch on the Colorado compact rules, because I know about as much as you do at this point. It's something in Colorado Water Congress. So, with the fire, obviously that doesn't involve water, so I'm not gonna say much about that, but go ahead and go to the next slide. We already talked about how big the fire is, and then the next slide. This is a map, and actually I saw you had a map on a good satellite image underneath. The only thing I wanted to say here, you guys, is 2 weeks ago, I went down to the Rio Blanco Water Service District Board meeting, and I was driving through town. I like to go through Meeker rather than go Highway 40. Anyway, if you haven't been through town and gone through right here, it was jaw-dropping how close that fire got. And that one circular home, I think Callie probably knows it, Chris does too. How did that home not burn? I mean, the fire went all the way around the house. And that's the only thing I really wanted to say here is it was scary how close that fire came, and Callie just lived it. My staff lived it as well. My staff were on go, ready, set, go, so they were asked to evacuate. A lot of their work halted and they couldn't get to much of their area.
So I would just say, when you ask how, it was our local volunteer fire department that saved those homes.
That is awesome. That is
Back
awesome.
to back, fighting that fire.
So
We
we
had
have to
excellent BLN too, but local BLN.
Pretty awesome. Okay, so now let's move on to drought. Cause all during this time, very low flows in the system. And one unique situation we had, and that just gave you the graph of White River near Watson, of course, it's the gauge right on the other side of the border there in Utah. And I should have looked and seen if the river has ever gotten this low down there. I've never seen it this low, but you can see around here, around the 14th of August or something, flows got down to 9.5 CFS. The water users down there, or one water user in particular called up and us and said, hey, we can't pump any water. And so our water commissioner went down there to try to see, well, what can we do? Could we actually honor a call on the White River down below the town of Rangeley? And what was challenging with this particular water user is he didn't pump 24/7. He pumped in the morning and he pumped in the evening, which makes sense. I mean, why pump during the hot time of year to do your irrigating? Well, how do you administer a call when it's not a consistent flow? When he's off, water's gonna go past his diversion point. When he's on, could be something dry, who knows? So, my water commissioner approached me and asked whether or not, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide. She went ahead and asked me whether or not we could do something where we asked the upstream ditches way up near Meeker, Miller Creek, Highland, probably even Oak Ridge, Niblock, for all I know, Powell Park, those big ditches, just to reduce their flows a little bit, 5 to 8 CFS. And they were all willing to reduce their flows. Some, I think she got about around 30, 35 CFS, more water into the river. And then she contacted all the water users all the way down to Rangeley and asked them, would you please not take the water, put your head gate in the water. And they were all willing to do that. And so hopefully, I mean, it seems like people were pretty happy down below town that we were getting at least a little water down there. And I just wanted to note just what a collaborative effort by the community and understanding of the community, both in Meeker and all the way down Rangeley, to try to get water down to these water users. And what I'm showing here are just a couple photos of the White River. This is the pump where the individual had contacted Betty, our water commissioner. This is in the entire flow of the White River right there. That's all that was in the river. And this was about 10 miles downstream from Rangeley, and you can see there's hardly any water whatsoever in the White River. So, yeah, very dry, critical year on the White River. But then what followed that, I think my next photo goes on to flood. We then, I already mentioned it, started getting rain. And you can see from this graph, we went from, a low of, 1 CFS here to up to 140 in just a couple days. And that's Peont's Creek. Callie mentioned Peont's Creek. They were hit hard. Fire and flood. Fire, then flood. Not a good combination. And Andy Rossi mentioned that too. It's just not a good combo. The next slide is another graph. It'll show what happened on the White River. Yeah, one more up. just look at that next graph. So you can see what happened on the, sorry, no, it's okay. The White River, same thing. I mean, we're down to 50 CFS, 70 CFS, all the way up to 400 CFS in just a couple of days on the White River. And I think even Vanessa mentioned this. Good, bad, indifferent, I don't know. Taylor Draw Dam is accustomed to having sediment. They know what it's like to get sediment in their river, in their dam, in their reservoir. But you can imagine what this could add to it. It's probably not so great when you start seeing all this debris starting to head down, and there's Taylor Draw. And I'm sure they're gonna have to worry about their spillway because they do spill, like right now they're spilling. They're gonna have to rebuild all that spillway. Go ahead, next slide. Callie mentioned it. And if anybody saw an article in the Steamboat Pilot, this picture was posted in the Steamboat Pilot. My water commissioner said she found at least, and I'm sure she's found more, at least 15 structures that look very similar to that. And of course, there was fish trail on the main stem of the White River too, because of all the debris that got in the White River. So, and something else that article mentioned, and this might even, I don't think that's the calling location, but we had a call on on Peons Creek. Started around the middle of May, and we ended up taking off because their diversion dam got completely washed out by those flows. You saw the flood flows, and their ditch got filled in too. I think the nets and reg had got, yeah, it's not good condition right now. That's our calling location. Just to give a next slide, we'll just get a quick update on the Yampa. I forget who mentioned it earlier, but it really is true that our river here, the Yampa River, would look entirely different if we didn't have reservoir water introduced into it. We've had stagecoach water introduced into it for quite some time. Right now, there's 45 or more CFS in the Yampa River coming out of stagecoach. That's been kind of the story all summer. And then a lot of water released from Elkhead Reservoir. Right now, the 2,000 acre foot pool is gone. That was the River District's water. They've contracted with the Water Trust. They've used that all up. That kind of had a dual purpose, both to provide for in-river kind of fish habitat as well as to keep the call off, which it did successfully do. And then the Endangered Fish Recovery Program pool, they just had 5,000 this year. They've been really managing closely that release to try to keep it going as long as they can. I think it's gonna last to about the end of September. I know we didn't have our call, but I think that's what David Graff's idea is, try to just squeak it out to the end of September, that 5,000 acre pool. So yeah, I think that's about it. I will just say we did come very close to having to put a call on the Mayville Canal. The Mayville Canal, we kept reducing and reducing and reducing because they were taking reservoir water, and then ultimately the protection point of this water to the base station, so they weren't taking reservoir water. That's another discussion that I want to explain right now because I've exceeded my 5 minutes, but that's what I have.
Aaron, thanks for being a part of that coordinating effort.
That all goes to Betty. Betty Kraft is awesome. She has a great relationship with all of our water users in the White, so really.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Aaron? Online, any questions for Aaron? Andy Rossi, how many acre feet of water have you released out of Stagecoach for the Yampa?
Thanks, Ken. I was holding off in the interest of time, but before I answer that, I'm going to say that this basin owes the Colorado Water Trust a great deal of gratitude for all the work they've done. You saw the numbers there that Aaron presented out of Elkhead. The Colorado Water Trust releases are on track to be close to 6,000 acre feet out of Stagecoach Reservoir alone. So that is nearing the biggest release in the history of that reservoir ever.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Alden, you have a question?
No, I have, well, not just a question. I want to add a little bit to what Aaron and Vanessa kind of talked about here, if I may, please. So not only did we have the White River go completely empty, we also had several domestic water users that get water supplies from the alluvium along the White River, that a lot of their wells went empty. And for about 3 weeks, these folks didn't have any water in these groundwater wells. And they didn't have systems in place in order to supply water for their domestic use. So they were borrowing tanks and borrowing whatever they can. They don't have cisterns, they have pressure pumps. So they were borrowing an awful lot of equipment to come in just to try to get water flowing to their house so they can live a normal life. And this wasn't just isolated to below rangeland. So there's other parts of our district, the Rio Blanco Water Conservancy District, that had additional impacts. So really tough times here. When we not only did we have a fire, we had a massive drought, and we've got shortage on feed coming in and difficulties growing. But then we run low on water in the river, and then you run out of water in the river, and then you run out of water in the alluvium, and then you get the massive flood coming in where you got crude oil is what it looks like flowing down the river, and now you got to figure out how these people are going to have to use that because now you got the water, but you may not be able to drink it because it's contaminated with various constituents in the water that will actually move into the alluvium. That's another area that we're looking at. So I don't want to forget about the groundwater because we got groundwater that's been negatively impacted by this whole situation as well. So, and we're still waiting on analysts to come back on those constituents, whether it's nutrients or metals or whatnot. But we're not done with this thing for a long time. And the Division of Water Resources has helped this out quite a bit, as has the conservation districts. And it's a community to make this effort. It takes a community to make an effort to work with something this magnitude. So thanks for allowing me the opportunity. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, Frank.
I will take 3.5 minutes. Promise.
Ken's got the clock on.
This committee update is very similar to the one in July. If you want to scroll up a little bit there, Sally. I want to first start off with the just an update on our funding. The 2025 final grants funding amount was about $441,000, which puts us at an ending balance of $269,000. Since we are going to be below that $450,000 threshold, we anticipate receiving at least $300,000 from the state to start our new cycle, which starts actually this month at about $569,000 that will be eligible to be granted out to folks that want to do projects. The schedule for this year, if you want to go to the next slide, please. This is kind of the detail of the numbers. I won't get into that in the end, save time, if you will. Next slide. The schedule for grants, it starts in September. And I'll just have you focus on this first row. The first cycle starts September 17th. That's when the actual grant applications are due. The next milestone date is October 8th. And that's when the grants committee will review those grants, make any changes, any recommendations, and then those will be presented if they go to the next step to the next Basin Roundtable meeting, which is November 12th, which that will be the first round that this group will be able to hear and see presentations from those grant applicants. I will say I've got one application that's been submitted already, and I've anticipated 2 others, in addition to 1 letter of support. So we'll have something to review and have presentations on grants at that November 12th meeting. And then, of course, the CWCB application deadline is December 1st. And then the board reviews those applications at their March 2026 meeting. So that's just the first cycle. We have 3 other cycles throughout the year. So that is just a very brief update on where we're at. Last plug, if anyone's interested in joining us, being on the grants committee, it's open to everyone. The October 8th date, that's a Zoom call. The information is on the website, along with everything else about grants. So please feel free to join us on October 8th. If you don't have anything else. Questions? We're doing it.
Okay, so you see.
I wrote them down because it just came in, there's the application I've gotten is from the Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies. So that one came in, and that's an application that's gonna be actually submitted to all the basin roundtables. So it's kind of a joint effort, if you will. The other one, I just heard from Greg Peterson. There's a head gate on the White River on the south side Highland ditch that needs some repairs that he's gonna put a grant in. And then the other one is a sleeve, an outlet sleeve pipe for a reservoir in Rio Blanco County that they're looking to submit a grant application. So those are the three as of.
So Frank, just thinking ahead is how many of the head gates are gonna be in a horrible shape? And you saw what the floors are looking like. Is there an opportunity, if state folks, if you're online, for the district to apply for, you know, a large grant and then divvy that out to people at that need it? Because in the past, they frowned on that. But I'm hoping under these circumstances, we could really go down that road, not creating any more work for you, Chris and Vanessa, but I'm just thinking that there's gonna be a serious need there.
Yeah, I think historically, the state has tried to take each grant at its own merits, if you will. And doing those joint grants have been cumbersome. But certainly we'd be willing to ask the question, and that would be a decision. I think it's above maybe potentially the grants committee or the BRT, but we can certainly ask that question.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, because I think that's gonna be serious need.
Yeah, definitely would ask that question. But I think that decision would have to come from.
Right, I figured it would. I was hoping maybe some of them are on. I don't know if they still are.
No, I don't think Sam's been on.
But I will ask the question.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Oh, Sam is still on.
I am still on, but no, if Andy saw I had his hand.
Go ahead,
raised
Sam.
first.
Yeah, please go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, and sorry, do you mind just providing a little bit more clarification on that? I just caught bits and pieces, but the question was that if the district applied for a larger grant and then distributed that to kind of basically sub grants, is that what the question is? Sorry,
Yes,
I
because-
kind of missed a little bit of that.
No, you're fine. It, because of the fire and then the floods that have come after it. And I'll just use Piance Creek as the primary one. On that main stem, others may know more specifically, but I believe on Piance Creek, there's probably 20 head gates in that creek. And I will guarantee you 3/4 of them are gone now, let alone when we get done by next spring. So just thinking, I mean, to save the state from doing each and every one of them and everybody doing all that paperwork. If the district could apply and then do sub grants out.
That's a great question. And is that out of WSRF?
Yes.
Or
Anything
okay.
you got. I'm not.
No, totally. Sorry. Just my mind wrapped up in a lot of things. But yeah, I could certainly see that being worth pursuing. I think that's a great question. I can't give like 100% answer, but I could certainly see that being a good way to go about it.
Like Sam, I think what they're talking about, what Callie's asking is maybe doing something like what Upper Yampa had, where they had a matching program and they got funding and were able to kind of more quickly take care of these small, low dollar, comparatively low dollar repairs.
And so it's one thing, it's gonna be one thing to replace a head gate. And now you have, you know, if you have flume damage and we have to have our flume, you know, we have a functioning head gate, now we have to have flume in order to irrigate. So, you know, is there a fund source? And I think that's really what you're getting at. I mean, and I don't know if we can tackle anything and everything, but let's say we focus on measurement flumes that were damaged. by you know, is there a fund where the districts, or whoever, can apply for a broad-based, and then be able to help our landowners out, maybe not 100%, but, do whatever we can, so, you know, when they get their head gets functioning again, or whatever the case may be, ditch is clean from the debris flows, be able to, you know, have a grant available where we can purchase or help them, purchase some of their, new equipment, I guess.
Yeah, so let's not put Sam on the spot.
So,
But
at least he understands this.
Frank and I understand it, and if we need clarification, we'll absolutely call. But we can work with like Ben and the folks that run those and just see what their response is. Maybe work with Ashley, I don't know. Andy, did you still have a question?
I just have a comment here on this subject here, and you guys have all put out a lot of good ideas. Obviously, we all identify the need that's coming and exists already in the White River Basin because of the fire and subsequent debris flows and its impacts on the ag community. I would encourage the folks who are in need right now. You saw Frank's schedule for our grant committee consideration to start working with us right now. And there's a lot of creative thinking and a lot of knowledge at this roundtable. I think that we as a group could come up with a way to be able to develop a grant program for these ag producers, specifically for the needs that we've identified tonight. So I'm going to encourage us on the grant committee to put our heads together and see what we can do to help folks out. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Andy. Okay, who's up next? Peppo, Sally.
Yeah, that'll be quick. I do have the Peppo agenda up, which is small, but tonight we really focused on the story map that we've been developing with Four Corners Consultants. And they took us through the purpose of the story map and took us through a demonstration and gave us a look at the live version, a mocked up version, demo version. But they've been doing quite a bit of content, and so now at this point I will be sending out the roundtable more emails to help us develop specific content. So I'll probably ask you if you want to represent and answers and look at some Google Docs and make comments. But if you have a specific area that you're interested in, please take the time to look at the story map, the outline, and make the comments, because this is the chance. It's really kind of, we're in the development phase where we're gonna have I think we're at 80 pages now, but we're gonna need more content and we want your words, not ours. So I think then the biggest problem is we have a lot of content and we're just gonna have to get rid of some. So I know everybody wants, you know, this to be all inclusive, but the story map will have to be whittled down, just because the story map will should be viewed in about 15 minutes, and we have 80 pages of content right now. So, that will be the work. So this is your chance to chime in. So I will be giving out a lot of emails and, you know, probably some specific ones to specific people asking you to, take a look at this. So there will be a very, long, big document, with all the different chapters, and, that'll come out within the next couple days.
So, and the key here is to be concise. If you have an area of included in the contents, we don't need a narrative. We need a sentence or two that's very clearly helps people understand that topic.
And instead of having you guys fill out random spreadsheets, we're gonna ask you targeted questions and give you specific things to answer. We won't have you say, please give us all your photos. We will ask for specific ones. The other thing we're really looking for is when you look through the chapters, we're looking for information gaps if we're missing something. So just let us know. The other thing is we're looking for a title, so think about that on your drive home tonight. Just a couple other things to think about. We've got another newspaper article coming out from Yampatika in September. And as far as partner updates, Yampatika gave us an update about all the things that they're doing this summer and all their initiatives. So take a look at on the YouTube. And I do want to say for Yampa Valley Sustainability Council's partner update, we are putting in a new soil moisture station at CMC in Steamboat, and that'll be going in the ground October 2nd, and we'll be working on that through the 5th. So we will have another email going out for an invite, so save the date to come and either look at the soil moisture station going in the ground. We'll have a ribbon cutting the next week, but if you ever want to take a look at it, just contact me. It's in Steamboat. It's really easily accessible, and it's really exciting to have one so easily shared with everybody. And also, and another little plug is I'm also starting to look at easements throughout the entire Upper Yampa, all the way through Fortification Creek for future soil moisture sites. So if you know of anyone in particular who might be willing owner, please reach out to me. That's all I have for capital updates here. Lots of emails, please answer.
Good, thanks, Sally. All right,
Put up Jeff's presentation for my ECC, please.
Just see.
So it was a bit of a surprise to a lot of us. I mean, we miss Jeff when he's not around, but I was one of the ones that was like, what do you mean you're stepping down? He's always seemed so resilient, and he's a real important part of the Interbasin Compact Committee. But the Interbasin Compact Committee is actually morphed pretty significantly in the last couple of years. So what I wanted to do is just run through very quickly where we're at with that. So all the way through to go. Okay, back up a little bit. One more back. One more back. Yeah, is there one more? Nope. Forward, please. Yes. Okay, so back in 2013, the no and low regrets document presented by Becky Mitchell to the Colorado Water Conservation Board turned out to be the foundation of our first water plan in 2015. So we're using that document compared to the 9 points that we came up with for the C9 summit. And these are the main topics that we think we want to make sure that we cover between now and the 2033 water plan. I know you're going 2033. That's a long ways off, but that's it. The planning effort that goes into these is significant. And the whole idea is to make sure that we're getting input from the roundtables. It was 20 years ago that the House Bill 1177 was passed. And we're trying to, Russ would be the first one to tell you, Russell George would tell you that we didn't know for sure how this was all going to turn out. And for quite a while, it just was, Kent was there in the early days. It was, nobody really trusted each other initially. And it took time to really gain where we are today, which is a pretty collaborative group that is anxious to work with each other. So we want to make sure that a tremendous resource that we have as a roundtable and in each of these 8 major river basins can easily be shared with each other as well as with the Colorado Water Conservation Board members and board staff. So these are the key items that we're looking at that we want to think belong in this no and low regret strategy, and we are anxious to find a catchy title that sounds better than that. And there may even be some kind of a competition at the C9 to see if you could come up with a better name. But for right now, we just call it LNR. So the L&R work is, includes these four critical elements. And next slide, please. What we're really trying to do, the IBCC is really helping to connect the roundtables and the Colorado Water Conservation Board. So we have these topics that we're going to discuss with each other at the IBCC and with the staff, and then bring them back to the roundtable, probably one at a time over the next few years to hear your input. And so the input that you're going to get, or that we're going to get, is going to come from you. And so you're going to hear those roundtables where I go around and I call on every person to have you kind of respond and give us some idea of how you feel, or another thing is like what topics are missing. You know, we know one that's missing is forest health. And I'm going to try to include forest health in the storage discussion, which is the first topic that we plan to take on. But anyway, that's this continuum of trying to make a better functioning interbasin compact committee. It used to meet for 2 hours a meeting, 3 times a year. It really didn't, it was just an update. And it didn't, now they're full day meetings, and we have formed a subcommittee group. I serve on the subcommittee. And what we do is take the work that we do at these all day meetings and then work once a month on trying to further that, so that when we get, follow up on what we talked about and make sure that we're ready to share it with you and share it with each other at the IBCC meeting, and eventually share it with the Colorado Water Conservation Board. Next slide, please. These are the responsibilities during this process for each of these different groups. And you can see that we all have a specific tasks. The one thing that you don't see mentioned here, though, is that the actual Colorado Water Conservation Board staff is quite supportive of this effort. That has been the case always. But we've seen significant changes. Becky has left her leadership position at the Colorado Water Conservation Board to represent us on the Colorado River negotiations. So Lauren Riss has stepped in, new face in that leadership role. Same thing with the planning chief for the Colorado Water Conservation Board planning section chief was Russ Sands, has been replaced by Kat Weissmiller. Kat's also very empathetic to this and is really helping drive this new initiative. And then finally, we've seen Becky step in and replace Dan Gibbs as the chair of the of the IBCC. Those three women have made a huge difference, and they're actually really anxious to hear back from you. So you are going to help facilitate this process. And if you're considering taking that IBCC position to work to help represent Northwest Colorado, that's the type of interaction that you're expected to have. You don't have to go to the subcommittee meetings on every month, but you need to be prepared to participate in these 3 meetings a year and take an active role in trying to understand issues that affect statewide, not only here, because it's a collaboration. One more slide. This is the timeline. I know it's too small for you to really see all the detail, but these are the 9 topics that we have spaced out through into 2029. And this all then leads to the technical documents and the VIP updates, and eventually the final adoption of the next state water plan in 2033. So this is the stuff that the IBCC has been pressing staff. Well, yeah, you got this process. Tell us about what you're thinking. And so they've been really good about sharing these ideas. I think that there's one more slide. Oh, yes, the C9 agenda. Here's some of the really interesting things that we're going to talk about. Trying to, talk about how we're going to make this peer-to-peer exchange of ideas really work, how to have these hard conversations that are interactive so that it isn't somebody like me just standing here talking, that all of us are participating. We have some breakout groups. We're going to talk about prioritizing and advancing projects, the marketing and outreach efforts through the PEPL committee, Roundtable roundtable's best management practices, just learning from each other. And then exploring legislative conversations in the last, even though it was all throughout the 2013 document, in recent years, it hasn't been really a welcome thing for the roundtables to participate or comment on legislative action. And yet, if you know anything about the system, you have to do that. You have to participate with the legislature. Next slide, please. Just this whole messaging, making sure that we're telling our story correctly. Ditch management planning. There'll be updates on the interstate issues that are going on. There'll be a nice dinner that evening, along with a social hour. The next morning will be an IDCC meeting, a statewide PEPO meeting. There's also another important state meeting, I'm blanking on what it is, that a lot of people had to go to. So a lot of this stuff is switched from where we had originally planned it. But that's what C9 looks like. Please, I know there's 10 of you that are interested in this and that would learn a lot. I don't think anybody that went last year think it was a waste of time. It really, it's a great opportunity to meet people just like yourself from all over the state. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Ken. Anybody have any questions for Ken here in the room or online?
The only other thing I'd say is you're reappointing in November, both IVCC members. I would be happy to continue serving as one of your 2 IVCC members. And that leads to your segue for your next item.
Put up the general elections slide. That would be one very fast.
Oh, yeah. That's got a question.
Oh, Ed Munger? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Munger.
So yeah, I just wanted to comment. So I think during the PEPO meeting, Ken said that we'd have 10 spaces that would be paid for by the state to attend that. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, so they've offered 10 to pay for 10 people from this roundtable to go. And like Ken and Jeff, who are the IBCC members now, they are being paid for out of a different pool of money. So we could actually have like 12 people.
And that includes your travel expenses, 2 nights hotel, if you want to stay for 2 nights. So they didn't send 10 people last year. I know we've got 10. Say again.
You just have takers to go to Preston View?
I know.
No.
It was a beautiful drive down there.
And we were in the art center, which was a little eclectic, but it was nice. I thought it worked okay.
Okay, so I wanted to just announce on the general elections that are gonna come up in November. So my 2-year term as chairman is up. So you'll be electing a new chairman. Both of the vice chair positions, the Yampa vice chair, which is Ken, and the White River vice chair, which is Chris. Those positions are up for the 2 years, so you'll be electing 2 vice chairs for the next 2 years. The IBCC representatives would be serving a 2-year term, 2025 or November 2025 through November 2027. Ken is current, and as you heard, he would like to continue. Jeff Myers is the other current, and he does not wish to continue. So we're definitely looking at a new representative, but we'll vote on both. As a 5-year term membership, Alden, are you still on?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, hey, we have your Rio Blanco Water Conservation District nomination as being up this year. So
I just,
can you?
I just
can you
renewed that
find-
here, what was it, last year, the year before?
Yeah, but so it's so your term is up at the start of the November meeting. And when they appointed you, you were just filling in that term. So we
Gotcha.
need you for
I'll get
another
a letter.
5.
I'll get you a letter.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for letting me know.
And then, as far as, general membership, there's an at-large membership, which is Jeff's current position. That goes from November 2025 through November 2027. We will be we'll have to elect an at-large. And, unbeknownst to me, and I didn't realize it, but Routt County has 7 representatives right now. And in our bylaws, it says each county can only have 6. So there's 15 positions that are voted on this roundtable. And Routt County has 7 of those seats. Moffett County has 4 of those seats, and Rio Blanco County has 4 of those seats currently. Well, yeah, so how we went over was when Rich Thompson gave up his seat and we elected Jackie. I didn't read the fine print. I apparently have the bylaws. So Jackie was the last one into Routt County. We were fine before, but now Routt County's over. So
I'm gonna help you out.
Sorry that I represent Tri-State, that the location of my home doesn't matter. We've had representatives live in Denver before. And that's never come up, so. The industrial seat is the industrial seat, and I know the intent behind Pete arranged this back in the day was not. Industry represent whoever they want, so those numbers should not be throwing off the balance.
Okay. Scroll to the next
We don't
page.
argue about it now, but.
Yeah, so, I mean, the language that's there, which is all I can go off of.
Which may need to be amended.
Steve, can I help you out? Cause you and I discussed it here. But my intent is to resign my seat after this meeting as environmental rep, just because I'm not working on water issues as much anymore. So I'm a Routt County resident, so I will be resigning. So you'll have an open seat, whether you change it, that requires someone to represent another county, that could be your decision, but you'll be down to 6 after tomorrow.
Okay, so you'll need.
I will send you a letter
Yeah, send
tomorrow.
me
I'm just
something
waiting till tomorrow, but
in
I'll
writing
send it
for that, so we'll add an environmental representative.
right, who may not be able to live in Routt County.
Be from Rio Blanco.
Or Moffett.
Or Mom.
Yeah, so the way I look at it, it says the 15 at-large members shall be limited to no more than 6 residing in any one county. Beginning the November 2016 election. Such 15 at-large representatives are pursuant to the act identified as follows. So that's the way I read it.
Yeah.
Jackie, we can talk about it offline or after.
I mean,
No, wait, we don't
Whatever.
wanna get rid of you, Jack. We're just saying that we
No,
accidentally.
don't worry, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I just think there has to be a balance, so we can talk about this if it needs to be amended. I think this is, maybe we've gone past the point of this.
Well, I was just
So
gonna
we can
say,
talk about
that
that.
could be 15 years ago that this was written, so.
No, it was in 2016. That is when we put this in. That's why it started in the 2016 election. Okay, so we'll need to add that, and at this point, we would definitely take at-large. For Jeff's seat, take at-large nominate or applicants from Rio Blanco and Moffett County, and I'll talk with Jackie and see what's up with that, so. Attendance, oh. Attendance.
Well, we have people that have, out of the last 10 meetings, have attended one meeting. So,
I'm not gonna.
Why don't we put the bylaws committee back together and not do this at night?
I'm with you, Jackie,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
we're just giving
I'm
you
just
some
saying,
idea what's coming up in November.
Drive back all the way home.
Anyway, I was just shocked as you guys when I was looking at that, cause I thought, well, I better figure out what counties need people, and that's what I discovered, so. Anyway, we've already gone over the announcements. They're on the bottom of the agenda. Next meeting is November 12th here at 6 o'clock. I don't know if we'll be in this room, which is 240, or we'll be back down to 185. They haven't told me yet, so we'll get with them and figure out what they're doing. But I heard they have a class for that room, so. All right, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Have a second? Okay, have a motion by Cam, a second by Jack. All in favor, say aye. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Also, what do you want to know this one? So.
Similar to you, like they have the historic buildings concept.
Yeah.
Right.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.